So let's just move in that direction. So in 2008, I think it was, Hurricane Gustav hit. And we had severe winds here, and they shut the 911 service down. And once the winds got to a certain, I don't know what the speed was, but when they got bad, they shut 911 down. And what they did is they came over the radio to everybody, police, fire, and EMS, and they said, go to the closest station or closest hospital and just take cover. Now, the winds were bad. Well, the only people, I guess, no, I shouldn't say the only people. So everybody wrapped up the call that they were on, and they went and took cover. Well, me and my partner, we were working the station off of Perkins, South Downs, the same place I was working during Katrina. And we got called to Pollard Estates. And it was 100-foot tree that came down on this 3-story house. Well, when we got there, they weren't exaggerating. It was like a 100-foot tree that came down on this house. And what was really sad was the lady, so there was a man, I won't say who he is, he's a prominent figure in Baton Rouge, but his fiance and her parents. Now, her parents were from out of town. They did not want to leave their home, and she finally talked them into coming to Baton Rouge. And so they got $10,000, all the money to their name. They put it in a red suitcase, packed some clothes, and came to Baton Rouge. And lo and behold, the storm changed directions, and it didn't hit as hard where they were from, but it hit here. So they're all sitting within 10 feet of each other, and this tree comes down, and it killed the parents. It didn't kill the lady, but it trapped her. And I think the man was okay. I can't remember. I don't remember. Yeah, he was, because I think I ended up seeing him at the hospital. But the tree came down, and she was trapped. And so we had to... Now, mind you, this is when we were experiencing like 100-mile-per-hour gust. And the Medcom, our dispatcher, kept saying, you need to take cover. I said, I need fire department out here now, and I need airbags. I need them to bring airbags. And they said, ma'am, we shut the system down. I said, let me talk to the supervisor. I've got to have help. We are not leaving her. And when we told them the extent of what was going on, then, of course, they sent the people we needed. The airbags are just to help, lift up the debris and the walls and all that to get her out. So to get to her, you had to cross through the front yard, go around the side of the house, go around the back, crawl under part of the tree to get to the other side of the house. And I could reach in the window, and I could barely feel her hand. And so we're all working, fire department's doing their thing. And I'm the only female on scene. And she heard my voice. And I remember reaching in, and I could touch her. Look, every time she took a deep breath, the roofing nails would like poke into her. And I told her at one point, she said, Stacy, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. I said, I'm not leaving you. And she said, I don't want to die in here. I said, if you die, I die. I'm not leaving you. Right as I said that, I look up, and the wall is breathing. And I'm thinking, we finna die. We finna die. All right. Well, I look back, and the house behind this house, and these are massive houses, here's this other 100-foot oak tree that's now swaying back and forth. I'm like, damn, please don't. We don't need 2 trees. And it took us a while to get her out. I mean, it took us a while. We had to basically use airbags to, pump up the volume. When we got her out, she was injured. I mean, I can't remember all of it. I know that she had basically ripped her lip off, but she had obvious trauma. She was alive, and that's what mattered. And she kept asking me, what about my parents? What about my parents? Well, I didn't tell her right away. I didn't want to tell her while we're trying to get her out, because if she goes in, if she starts crying hysterically, she's going to really get cut by these nails. Our focus was getting her out. Well, the weather was getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, I told Brad, I said, we got to get out of here. And so finally we do. Well, it's his call, meaning that, we rotate every other call. So I would drive when it's his call, and he'd be in the back. And I told him, I'm like, dude, I know usually the paramedics not always seat belted in. We don't always seat belt in because we were moving around taking care of the patient. And I was like, you need to seat belt yourself in because we're going on a ride. Well, the way this subdivision is set up, well, let me just put it like this. There were trees down everywhere, and I'm calling MedCom. I said, you got to get me out of this subdivision. I mean, I have a mapping system, but I couldn't get out of the subdivision because I'm blocked. Well, these people see, because, neighbors were out. They knew this tree had come down. Well, they see us. They see me, like, trying to figure out how to get out of there. And I made eye contact with this lady and this man, and I waved, like, can I go through your front yard? And they were like, come on, do what you have to do. Well, you don't want to go slow because it's an ambulance, which weighs a lot. So I floored it, and I took out their hedges, their flower garden, like pretty much everything in their front yard. Wiped them out. But I didn't get bogged down. I got through it, got past the tree, finally got out of the subdivision. There was another tree that came down on our truck, busted the window. There's mud everywhere, and I'm just trying to get to Arlay the Lake, which is only like 1.5 miles, 2 miles from this house. But I did it. I told Brad, I said, I'm going to get us out of here. And so sure enough, I did. And we roll up at the lake, and all the medics that were taking cover at the lake and, like the staff, the nurses and all, they come running out when we pull up. Because, we call in our radio report to let them know we're en route. They come running out, and we look like some country bumpkins pulling up, mud falling off the truck, window busted. We are soaked. Like, it was, the rain was so heavy, and I had rain boots on. I poured my rain boots out on the ramp. I mean, and they, could have filled up, 32-ounce cup. I mean, they were full. And so she kept asking, how are my parents? How are my parents? So we get in the room, and, well, we're going to be there a while because we're now 10/7. We're out of service. Everybody is because of the 911 system's on hold. So I talked to one of the nurses that I'm friends with, and I said, will you go in there with me? Just to be supportive to her. And so, God, I went in there. Now, she's on a spine board because she's immobilized, and I leaned over and I said, it absolutely shatters me to tell you this, but your parents are both deceased. I figured she might have some idea because you could smell vomit. I know I'm getting kind of deep with that, but you could smell it. And death has a smell too, but that smell was on scene. But I'm sure she was still questioning it, and I didn't want to hold off any longer. That's not fair. I would have wanted to know. But I leaned down and I told her, and I held her hand, and we're both crying. It was heartbreaking, and she kept saying, I'm the one that got them here. They didn't want to leave their home, and I'm the one that begged them and finally got him here. It's my fault. And I said, and I just explained it to her, and I'm not going to push beliefs and tell her blah, blah. I'm just going to be supportive and hold space and give her reassurance, and that's what I did. And so then she tells me a little while later, she says, Stacey, I know this sounds ridiculous because I just lost my parents, but they had a red suitcase with $10,000, and I don't care about the money, but I just want to see if somebody found it to make sure it's secure somewhere. Well, I call the scene. I'm like, we didn't find it. We were just trying to survive, right? So I call my friend Mindy. She's a crime scene investigator. She was out on the scene. They were out there for hours. It took hours to cut enough of that tree away to get her parents out. But I called Mindy. I said, Mindy, look, I kind of know I love Mindy. I know there's a hurricane going on right now. But anyway, can you just put that aside for a second? There's a red suitcase there. It's got $10,000. Not that they're worried about the money, but she said, no, I get that. And so she said, she kept, touching base with me. She said, I can't find it. But this house was destroyed. I mean, there was insulation everywhere. It was just destroyed. So this call was, I want to say around 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon. Well, crime scene and everybody was out there all night. It took them that long to get the parents out. And I think like 8 o'clock the next morning, Mindy called me. She said, I found it. I said, oh, thank God. And so I told, the lady that we had found it. And she just cried. She didn't care about the money. It was there were some personal papers in that suitcase too. And I can't imagine talking your parents into that, finally convincing them. Then the storm changes, and this one random tree is going to fall on their house out of all the places it could have fallen, and it didn't even kill anybody but the parents. How random. I'm saying random because it's not random. Things like that have a divine plan. I have no doubt about that. It was really terrible. It sucks to give death notices. I've always had the same thing I've said, especially when it comes to like a baby. I always would say a quick prayer, and I would say, God, please give me the right words to say to these people that are going to resonate with them, meaning that are compassionate, that not like, oh, your loved one's dead. Because it's not easy to do that, especially when we roll up to a scene and somebody's running fiercely towards us and they're pulling us in their house and there's a dead child. And that child's been dead for a while, which is a DOA. We don't usually transport them. We would contact the coroner. The only time I've transported a deceased child was when the scene was unsafe. Like somebody pulled a gun on us and said, save my child or I'm going to shoot you. Well, I'm going to put the child in my ambulance and do what's called a code blue transport, which is where we contact the hospital and say, we're en route. This is a DOA. The scene was unsafe. We were not going to leave the deceased there. We're en route to your facility. We'll handle the coroner stuff when we get there. And they're always fine with it because our safety is at risk. But it's really hard when parents, of course, have hope. You're going to do something. You're here. You're going to save them. And to have to go tell a parent that you cannot save their child is gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. I had a lady that I had to tell that years ago, and then the worst part is you can't let them hold the child because now it's considered a crime scene. All these infant deaths are considered crime scenes. And this lady said, can I please hold him? And I said, no, ma'am. I said, but you can touch him. At that point, I didn't care. I knew it was a natural death. They said SIDS. SIDS is always vaccine related. I've never had a SIDS death where the child didn't have a vaccine within a couple of days of the death. It's always been vaccine related, immunizations. But, and I had to tell this lady she couldn't hold her son. He was 1.5. And she went and got his little stuffed football and was, trying to place it under his arm. That's something that I can't even put into words. I know if you've lost a child, you know those feelings. So I'm not trying to compare my feelings to that at all. Trust me, I'm not. But it's heartbreaking. There's this helpless feeling. We're the ones that's supposed to save people, and to feel so helpless and so heartbroken for these parents, and then to have to tell them you can't help is, oh man, that lump in your throat when it's like you want to cry, but it's past that. It's like you have to cry. I could not cry with them. There's no way. There's just no way. There's no way anybody had dry eyes when that happened with that little boy. It was so sad. She was getting up, getting dressed for church, and about to go get him up. Had his little tiny suit laid out on the bed, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, that was rough. So, but that's my Gustav story.